Do you like my shirt? It's very on brand for what I'm talking about today. I got a root beer float right here. Recently I've been getting really into the X-Men movies again. I grew up watching them. More so, I was very into X-Men First Class. And like Days of Future Past, I saw those two movies so much when I was a kid. But I had, like, my parents always had on the first, like, the original three X-Men trilogy movies in the background of whatever. But upon revisiting the X-Men franchise, because I've been on a bit of a Deadpool kick lately, I've come across some very strange discoveries with regarding the timeline. Now, full disclosure, two things. I will be discussing major spoilers of the X-Men, of all the X-Men movies, pretty much up until the most recent, or like, I guess, like, if you haven't seen, like, Logan or Deadpool and Wolverine, I guess, like, that's where I'm, just in case, I don't know. It's been, like, 20 years, though, so, like, sorry if you haven't seen it by now. You should get on that. So, spoilers, I guess, but not really. Now, I've come across major, like, unexplained timeline discrepancies that I'm just not quite sure about. And of course I haven't Googled any of this. I've just been thinking about it, and I thought, why not make a video about it? Especially because I haven't made a video in a while, and this has just been on my mind, and that's kind of what this channel is for. So, for this I have to draw a diagram. So, this is the X-Men timeline. This is the X-Men timeline. This is the X-Men timeline. A very crude version of it. Now, let's say the first three X-Men movies are, like, about here. So, this is X-Men 2000. How do I select? Oh my god. X-Men 2000. X2. And Last Stand. I'm in all caps for some reason. That's actually fine for what I'm doing. These three movies, they all came out in the 2000s. You know, we all know them. We all love them, for the most part. I know a lot of people hated Last Stand, but it's fine. So, these three movies, right, whatever. And then, a few years later, First Class comes out, which is the oldest in the whole, like, canon. It takes place in 1962. This is X-Men First Class, which is the prequel. For those of you who don't know X-Men and are just watching this because you follow me, and you somehow don't know X-Men. So these are the original three movies, right? It mainly centers around Wolverine and, you know, the school, and you have, Sir Ian McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart in these movies. First Class is like the prequel, and it came out in like 2012, 2013 maybe? I don't know. It was after, I think, the movie The Wolverine. Oh yes, I should also clarify, I will probably not be discussing, I'm not really going to be touching much on The Wolverine or X-Men Origins Wolverine, as I have not seen them yet, but I also don't know if they have major plot relevance. I also haven't seen Logan yet, which I know is really bad, okay? Whatever. So I don't know, there might be more, like, crazy stuff that happens with that, but regardless, this is 1992, I believe. These are supposed to be around, it's supposed to be, like, modern day, so I think it's supposed to be 2000s. I think this is supposed to be, like, modern day, so 2000s, even though we are not in that time period anymore. This is 1992, though. If we're talking chronology, the first X-Men movie is First Class, right? And then, the movie that comes out right after First Class is X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, this is where it started getting confusing for me, because up until this point I was like, oh yeah, this all makes sense, this is fine, like, this is fun and good and cool, and like, this makes sense, there's nothing wrong here, right? But then I rewatched X-Men Days of Future Past, which takes place sometime after Last Stand. And I know this, and this is part of the problem. This is part of the confusion that I'm having. So, I think it takes place... Okay. Let's just do DFP for Days of Future Past, right? So, in Days of Future Past... In this movie, there's time travel. We travel back in time because remember, this came out after First Class. First Class, I'm pretty sure, did quite well. And people liked it, I'm pretty sure, because it was like, oh my god, new X-Men movie, but it's a prequel, so it's all the characters we still remember and everything, but it's like cool and it was well done as well. I don't know if it did well, but I liked it. There are these creatures called robots called the Sentinels, who have the ability to destroy mutants and like withstand mutant powers by adapting because of Mystique's genes. In Days of Future Past, I've come to the conclusion that I'm pretty sure this is supposed to take place around 2023, right? This is supposed to take place around 2023, give or take. This is also my first time using paint, by the way, so be kind. So, this takes place around 2023, right? We travel back in time. I'm gonna do it in crayon. We travel back in time. No, sorry, not that far back. We travel back in time to 1973, right? 1973. 50 years prior. And that's where I got the 2023 from. It's because they say 50 years ago, the past 50 years, all this crap about 50 years, right? So this is when Mystique kills Trask. She kills Bolivar Trask. And that's what creates the Sentinels. Now that we kind of have that exposition out of the way, I'm pretty sure, there's some things that we need to address about Last Stand, okay? Whoa! Slow down, Maurice. He's been up all night, raving. Alright, so some things that happen in this movie. Let's just bump up this, okay? Some things that happen in this movie. Spoilers, again. But it's been literally, like, over a decade, okay? So it's fine. Things that happen in this movie. Oh god, all caps. Professor X dies. He is killed by Jean Grey. Another thing. Jean Grey dies. Logan kills her. I'm not gonna explain who all these characters are, otherwise we'll be here all day, okay? I explained all this to my friend today, and I think he's never seen any of these movies, but I think he understood my confusion, which was all I needed. And also, Eric, or Magneto, loses his powers. Alright? Also, for all you nerds... Okay, things that are not relevant to this, because they basically ended up being retconned by Days of Future Past, right? Okay, things that don't matter in what I'm talking about, because they never get brought up, is at the beginning of Last Stand, they're talking about, like, oh, the ethical, moral dilemma of, like, what if there's a guy who has there's this guy who has full bodily function, but he has no consciousness and he's basically like brain dead, so he can't move or do anything, right? But he has a perfectly functional body. What if we were to put someone with, like, someone who's like dying of cancer with like a family and stuff into his, like, put his consciousness into the other man's body? What would that be morally? But then at the end of the movie and the post credits, we see that this is after he's dead. He's been killed, right? By Jean Grey, literally atomized. So I think we're supposed to assume that this is because he's such a strong mutant, or because it was a straight up atomization, so maybe it wasn't full, like, brain death or something. I don't know. Maybe it's a psychic thing, like a metaphysical sort of thing. But basically, the guy in the coma looks over to Moira, the doctor, and goes, "Hello, Moira," in Patrick Stewart's voice. So we're supposed to be, and then it's like, what? Oh my God, he's alive! It's him. He's just in the other guy's body, right? Another thing that doesn't matter, but they never bring this guy up ever again. It's never brought up ever again. All right. Another thing that isn't relevant: Eric moving the chess piece at the end of Last Stand. Eric has gotten his powers completely zapped from him, assumably, and he's playing chess in the park because he's an old man, and he, like, puts a finger out and doesn't touch the chess pieces, but he has metal chess pieces, and he moves one of them, just nudges it a little bit, and it was awesome. It was so cool, and it was so awesome, and I thought it was so cool. But it doesn't matter because it never gets brought up again. And it doesn't matter because of Days of Future Past. It doesn't matter because of... Because it doesn't matter because of Days of Future Past. Now, let me explain to you why it doesn't matter because of Days of Future Past. In Days of Future Past, in the first scene with Boo Boo Stewart, I think it's Boo Boo Stewart. I'm almost certain that that's Boo Boo, right? All right, what do we have in this? Let's then now establish what is true in this movie. At the start of this film, just the start, the parts where it's supposed to be this timeline, we have a voiceover by Patrick Stewart, Professor X. What's up with that? He died, right? So maybe it's just like from the grave or something. No. Let's see. Professor X is alive. And not only that, but Eric has his powers. I mean, I guess it is plausible, though, to believe that from between Last Stand, the end of Last Stand, and Days of Future Past, Eric could have, I guess, potentially built his power back up, at least a little bit, but it still doesn't explain the Xavier stuff. So, what's up with this, right? What's the deal? So, this is, and here's the thing. Oh, maybe this took place, but Rob, maybe this took place before, like somewhere, either here or here, but they just didn't mention it in any of the primary X-Men movies for some reason. And to that, I say no, because here's the thing. In this movie, young Charles Xavier, when we go back to 1973 to stop Raven from killing Bolivar Trask, what happens then? Charles is reading Logan's mind and trying to see past Logan. He has to look into Logan's mind to see past Logan to get to his older self, right? And in this, he sees Logan's trauma and Logan's pain from these movies, as well as all of the Wolverine movies. This space right here is just going to be those Wolverine prequels, right? I don't know if the Wolverine from like 2009 or whatever, or I mean like 2013 or whatever was a prequel, but it doesn't matter because I haven't seen it and whatever. Now the thing is with this, if he goes back in time and he sees all of Logan's trauma and Logan's pain, so Logan being transformed into the Wolverine here, and he sees Logan killing Jean here, killing Jean right here, okay? So Days of Future Past could not have been around here because it's established in the film that Last Stand happened. Last Stand happened. So why is Professor X alive, and why does Eric have his powers, and how is this even happening after Last Stand? How is this happening? Right? And the thing is, the craziest part of this all is the fact that then They save the day, they do it, and they create a completely new timeline, which is presumably the same. This is 2020, this is 2022 or 2023 squared, right? Because it's the alternate timeline. And what happens in this alternate timeline, you may ask? That's a really good question. What occurs in this alternate timeline? What occurs in this alternate timeline, you may ask? I will answer that question for you, my friend. Here are some things. Jean Grey is alive. Scott Summers is alive. Professor X is alive. And that is all fine and dandy, right? But it just doesn't, I don't understand. I don't understand this, because here's the other crazy part, is when then you take into account all of what I've just told you. The fact that these literally cancel each other out. This cancels each other out. These two movies cancel each other out. Because what do you mean this comes after Last Stand, but Professor X is dead? In this movie, we see on-screen Professor X death, and it's not this. It's not him, because it's Patrick Stewart, brother. And the guy in the coma was not Patrick Stewart, so it's not that. Oh my god. And I know I'm overthinking this, and I know I should just go with the flow or whatever. But come on, man. This is kind of crazy. And it gets even weirder then when you take into account the Deadpool storyline, plotline of it all. The thing with Deadpool that's confusing to me in the context of this, because obviously he's meta and he kind of exists, a lot of his stuff exists outside of he's allowed to do things that other X-Men characters and even in general just Marvel characters aren't necessarily allowed to do in the same way. But there's still something confusing here, because if the Deadpool movies are supposed to take place in modern day, so 2016 was when the first Deadpool movie came out, I think. How come this is 2023? Or are these just completely separate universes? I don't know, because we know that Logan from Logan was in Logan from the movie Logan. I'm assuming, now this is where it gets tricky for me, because I haven't seen Logan. So I don't know if it's the same Logan that we see in all of these movies. All these movies, right? I'm assuming that it is, because that's kind of the only Logan we know at this point. Really? We haven't met Worst Wolverine yet, because that happens here in Deadpool and Wolverine. But if this is when Deadpool happens in 2016, Deadpool 2 also happens in 2018. Logan happens, that's a dick. Logan happens somewhere here, the movie Logan, where Logan dies. Then how come this happens? And how come, another thing that I'm kind of confused about, but not really, as much, it might just be, a silly, just a Deadpool thing. That's the problem with the Deadpool movies, it's oh, well, it could just be a Deadpool thing. I also could have this date wrong, but, that's 2023. It's 50 years. They said 50 years. That's 50 years, right? Because this would still be the modern day, even though it's... I'm having fun with the different brushes. Even though this timeline was completely basically erased, right? And I know this is a silly thing, but then how, since this whole timeline was basically expunged by this event happening, this being prevented, that stopped all of this from happening, stopped this from happening. How come at the end of Deadpool 2, is he able to kill Wade, his older self, and not die? I mean, I just don't know, because, like, again, could be a completely different universe, because I haven't seen Logan, so I don't know, and this is such a stupid thing for me to be so, like, in my head about, but, like, I don't read the comics, so I could be missing big chunks. But I just am so confused by this timeline. Like, do you understand why I am confused? Please let me know if there's an explanation for this. Did I miss something, or is this a paradox? Did I miss something, or does this not make any sense and can't happen at all? Let me know, because I don't know what's happening at all. And I just don't... Did all of this happen? No, because this had to have happened in this timeline as well, because then we also, in this movie, in Days of Future Past, we see him get picked up by Stryker. But it's not even Stryker, it's Mystique as Stryker. So did the same things even happen to him? I don't know, because then that would make this make sense. Except not really, because how did he not die? It might just be a Deadpool thing where, like, he's allowed to do that because he's Deadpool. I don't know. I don't have issues with the Deadpool movies, like, for the most part at all. Because I like them. But some of that stuff makes me confused. There's also, we have, like, the characters from the prequels in Deadpool 2, in that one scene where he's like, and none of the X-Men are here. You think the studio would throw us a bone. No one's here. Except for you, Colossus. But and then the door closes, and inside it's all the characters from these movies. Again, I think that's just a Deadpool thing, though. Like, I think he's just allowed to do that. So, you know, it's like, I don't know. If anyone has an explanation or, like, anything for me, help me. Because I don't understand any of this. And I'm a little lost. Again, I have not watched all of these movies, so I might just be missing big chunks of this plot. But I just don't know. So leave a comment down below if you're interested in, if this interested you at all, about me being so confused about the X-Men timeline. Just so you know, this is my finished timeline confusion. Okay? Edit this in elsewhere.
No.
If this interested you at all, maybe subscribe a little bit. I never talk about movies like this. Like, I never like talk about, I don't talk about superhero movies that much, but I might sometime. Again, because I'm very into the Deadpool. I love Deadpool and I love X-Men, and I don't care about the MCU at all. So, hit that freaking subscribe button if you're chill. Check out my music, bruh. But yeah, please let me know if I'm missing something huge, or if it's just a mess and I should just stop trying to make sense of it and just enjoy the movies. But I'm still gonna try to make sense of it, because it's like, it made sense up until this point. It made sense up until this point. So why did we do this? Days of Future Past was a really good movie, but I'm so confused about the timeline, dude. Oh, okay. End of broadcast.
Slow down, Maurice.
I think you missed big chunks of that movie. I'm pretty sure Luke nailed her. Baby, that's Empire. I gotta get a job and stop doing this. Edit this video. Okay.